Good morning, everybody. It's Peter here from AJS, also representing our sister business in New Zealand, G&A Warburtons. And once again, we have the delight of taking you into a jeweller's workshop somewhere in Australia. And this week we're heading to sunny Adelaide and even sunnier Katherine Grocott. Good morning, Katherine.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
It's great to have you back on board, Katherine.
It's good to be here.
Indeed. So today we're doing an introduction to filing. We're going back to basics.
Mm-hmm. Yep, back to basics and back to a very important skill. But before we get into that, I'd like to acknowledge that I am living, working and creating on the lands of the Kaurna people. I'd like to acknowledge and pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. And acknowledge that their spiritual connection to the land has never been broken. So, filing. As we said, this is a back to basics course. So if you've been a jeweler for many, many years, you'll be on top of this stuff. But if you're new to jewellery and you're just starting out on your making journey, then this might be a helpful introduction to a very important basic skill. This is something that all jewellers will use, especially when they work with metal.
So I assume, Katherine, there's some essentials that you've just got to get right, otherwise you do it wrong. And
yeah. And certainly this is one area where knowing the tools will greatly help what you're doing. If you know what tool to use, then it takes less time, less energy, yet you can be more efficient in how you make if you've got the right tools. You know, the old saying, the right tool for the job. Definitely the case with files. So the purpose of filing, there's two kind of main purposes. And one is to shape the metal. So you might see here that, you know, I've cut this out with a saw, and the edges, like it's just got a little bit of a bump in it, and it doesn't have a nice flow to the cut line. So yeah, what I'm trying to do is make sure that if there are any imperfections in my shape when I've cut it out, that I smooth that out. So I'm fixing up any errors and creating a nice smooth line. But the other aspect is I'm removing any marks from any previous processes. So in this one, I've got saw marks on that from from when I've cut it out with a saw blade. So I need to get rid of those marks. Otherwise, you're going to have these little lines all over your work, which doesn't look nice. So basically, two purposes to filing: getting the shape right and fixing any kind of errors, but also getting rid of marks from previous processes. And as we go through the kind of tools and explain some of the things about them, then you understand how different files would have different grits, and you go down from the coarser cut down to a finer cut, or a coarser grit to a finer grit. And the finer one will get rid of the marks from the coarser one. So yeah. Alrighty, so there are different types of files. For me personally, I pretty much only use kind of two, and that's my hand files and my needle files. But there's more than that. So first of all, hand files. Now these are the kind of files that you're looking at. Hand files are nice and quite large. They're probably about 15 to 20 centimetres long. They have a tang, so this is the tang down the bottom, which can go into a handle, but many people don't bother with a handle, and they'll kind of use it as is. As you can see, it comes in a set, or it can come in a set. You can get different types of files. So these are kind of your big ones, and they'll have the coarser grit to start with. So they'll remove more bulk of material. So I have two sets of hand tools, one that's in I think a German cut 2 and one in a German cut 3. So one's a bit coarser than the other. So I'll start with the coarser, I'll move to the finer. Your next type of file are your needle files. So these are shorter in length, and they come in kind of a shorter blade length, if you like. Again, lots of different profiles. They'll have different shapes. So you'll have, curved edges, round edges, flat edges, but they're smaller and a different kinds of cuts. So with your hand tools, you might have a cut of between 0 and 4. That's the kind of coarseness of it. With needle files, they might start at a 00 and go to maybe about a 6, depending on whether it's a Swiss or a German cut. I'll get into that a bit later. But you can then go down even further in size and in grit to tiny little escapement files. So again, about the same length as a needle file, but the vast majority of it is the handle, so that you only have this very small length of actual working area of the file. And these are, they're for ultra fine work and very small spaces. But they also have a much, much finer grit. So this might go up to maybe about a 10 cut. In the kind of coarseness of it, or a 10 is very, very fine. Now, they're the 3 that I have. I only have this one escapement file that I bought for a very, very specific job. So focus mainly on my hand files and my needle files. Escapement files are next, but there's a couple more. You can get what's called riffler files, which have a double-ended curve on the end, and they are excellent for getting into very small spaces. But realistically, it's probably most likely going to be like trade jewellers who use those for getting into kind of elaborate shapes and very fine detail on work. You've got buff files, which actually do interest me, in that they are not graded by a cut. They are graded by a grit. So cuts relate to the teeth on a file. Grit is a little bit more, if you know about sandpaper, sandpaper has a grit. So these buff files are actually graded with grit, and they come in needle and escapement file shapes and profiles. So same shape, same profiles, but with this much, much finer kind of grit grading. And finally, you've got ceramic fibre files. Now, they're actually kind of lengths of fibre, ceramic fibres that are the same all the way along, and you put them into a little handle, and you can actually shape them. You shape them to the kind of point that you want, but you have kind of flat files, round and square is pretty much the only profiles you get. But again, probably more focused on your trade jewellers and engravers who might kind of focus on those. But for the average hobby jeweller, having a really good set of hand files and a good set of needle files, they're going to do the job for you. This is one thing I would invest your money in. A good set of files, if you look after them, will last your entire life, and you should be able to hand them on. So invest in files. Kind of traditionally, the best files are coming out of Switzerland. you know, excellent quality, lasts a lifetime, good warranties, etc. You probably want to avoid the really, really cheap ones that come out of China, where you could get a pack of 12 for, you know, $10. Yeah, that's not going to last you very long. But yeah, invest in good files. So now the other thing that you can do is there are different types of files for different materials. So those hand and needle files that I've got, and that little escapement file, they are definitely designed for metal. You know, your coppers, your silver, your gold, etc., titanium. However, jewelers work with lots of different materials. So sometimes having different files for different purposes is a much better idea. So I work in wax sometimes. So I've got a couple of different files for working in wax. So this one here is your kind of hand file for wax. But you might be able to see the very clear difference between how the teeth work on a hand file for metal and a hand file for wax. They're a lot more open, so they don't get clogged up as easily or as quickly as with the soft kind of material of like wax. These will get clogged up quite quickly, and you have to keep cleaning them over and over again. Whereas these won't. They'll kind of move the material out of the way for you as they're filing. But yeah, these ones will have, these are like a half round, so they've got a flat base on the bottom, a rounded shape on the top, and with that kind of much more open teeth, but with two different grits. So you've got it all kind of in one tool. You've then got, I've got two different types of needle files for wax. So we've got these ones, which are quite, you know, aggressive. I don't know, hopefully you can see. Yes.
Yeah, we've got a good view there.
Yep. So yeah, you can see that again, you've got these kind of much more open, spaced apart teeth. Again, that means that for soft materials like wax, or even something like a soft wood, even a little bit of plastic, they might work well with. But yeah, they get rid of material quite easily and quickly, and being, you know, just so kind of bulky, that's going to remove, it's going to be an aggressive removal. Then you, and see, these are sometimes known as rasp files, with those kind of more, open, gritty teeth. Then you've got your normal, or getting more normal needle files, especially designed for wax. So yeah, they have the more of an appearance of the normal needle files with kind of very similar teeth, but you use those as your kind of last layer of removing material. There's also diamond files. So diamond files, they're measured slightly differently. They are not measured in grit or in cut. They're measured in mesh. So again, slightly differently. But you can see the kind of like, yeah, diamond impregnation into the file. Now, I specifically use these for enamel, you know, to get rid of the hard glass of enamel that, you know, might have leaked over the edge of a piece or something like that. I'll use diamond files for that. But some people use diamond files for things like kind of smoothing off stones. So yeah, diamond files, really good for very, very hard kind of materials.
So I assume there's a bit of an extra expense with those, Katherine?
Well, again, if you get a really good quality set, yes. But because I picked these up actually quite cheaply, because I'm only dealing with kind of the tiny littlest bits of scrap enamel that kind of bleed over edges. For that, I was like, oh, I probably don't need to invest quite as much in those as I would with my other ones, because what I do is I just remove the kind of leftover enamel with these, and then I'm left with the metal, and then I'll go in with my normal files to clean up the actual metal edge. And I also have separate sets of hand and needle files for two things: aluminium and plastic. Because so I've got plastic hand tools, like baby hand files, needle files, and then aluminium hand tools and needle files. Now, the reason for this is aluminium is kind of regarded as a dirty metal, and it contaminates others. So I don't let my good files touch aluminium. I try to keep my good files for good metals like copper and silver, etc., titanium. And plastic, again, tends to clog up files quicker. So back when I was learning acrylic and plastic kind of work, I invested in just some kind of cheaper version of files for working with those. So that's lots of different types of files. So that gives you a bit of an overview of what is out there and what you might have to think through as you're working with materials. Some people, especially like quite often in jewellery schools, the same hand file will be used for metal, plastic and wax. It will cut everything, but it has the potential to wear down your file quicker. You have to clean it a lot more. So you can make that decision yourselves about how you want to work and how you want to look after your files. Now, I've got a little picture for you, because the other thing,
the presentation for me wouldn't be the same without a picture.
But have a picture. Got to have a picture. I've got to have a drawing. Now, hopefully, you're going to be able to kind of read this as I go through. The files come in different profiles. So the profile is looking at the very end of the file. Oops. So if I've got my hand file, I'm looking down the length of it. So I'm looking at this kind of top point here to see what the profile is. So what I've drawn up is the different types of profiles and their kind of length shape, so that you've got an idea of what they are. A little bit of a heads up, these can be, it can be a little bit confusing, simply because different jewellers can call them different names and different file companies can call them different names. So I've got a bit of a mix where some of these can be called 2 or 3 different names. So let's start at the top. The one that I just had in my hand, that's a pillar or a flat file, but kind of its technical name for some companies is an equaling file. The next one has the same profile when you look down the end of it, but it's tapered. So instead of having kind of a nice rectangular end, it's tapered towards the end, and that's known as a warding or a tapered flat file. The next one, probably one of the most common and potentially most useful. It's a half round file, and that means that in one file you can do flat surfaces and inside curved surfaces. The next one down is the half round ring. Now, the half round ring you will normally only find in a hand file, but you can see, hopefully, the difference between the two. So this one has a slightly lower profile than this one. So this is the half round, this is the half round ring. Perfect for getting on the inside of a ring. That's its job. So many people, if they are going to just get one hand file, this is what they'll get. They'll get the ring, the half round ring file, because of that lower profile, and it's easier to get into into your rings. Next one down is a crossing file. Now this is where it's basically, it's your two half files joined together. So you end up with two ever so slightly different profiles of half rounds kind of joined together. So it's a crossing or a double half round. You've got to love it. Next one is a knife. Now, this is where you might begin to see something a little bit different with my drawing. You'll notice that I've been drawing these little green lines. That's where the teeth are. But on a knife, you don't normally have teeth on this back side cut. Some people call it a safe edge. So sometimes you might find that you have a pillow file that has safe edges on both sides, or it might have a safe edge on one side. That's kind of the manufacturer's preference. But yeah, they can make ones without teeth in certain places so that it doesn't cut into your work. Next one, we've got I love this one, a 3 square. Completely oxymoron there, but that's what it's called, a 3 square file, or we might, more logically call it a triangular file. It's a triangle. And this one, it's equilateral. It's the same angle on each corner. Next one is a square. Fortunately, that one's really obvious. It's a square, but it will taper down either to a point or to a little blunt edge, depending on whether it's a hand file or a needle file or an escapement file. There's round. Sometimes the round files can come in different diameters. So maybe a 3 mil it starts at, or a 5 mil. But again, depending on on hand file or needle file, will determine the size of that. And it almost always tapers down to a point. You've then got an oval file, also known as a marking file. So it's kind of a nice even oval all the way around. So it means that you can use the end of it might get into certain shapes, whereas the kind of flatter end might be better for other shapes. We've then got a barrette file. Now, this potentially is one of my personal favourite files, because on a big one, there's your teeth all on the one side, but as you flip it over, nothing. There are no teeth on the back faces of a barrette file. What that means is you can safely get into like little corners without cutting out more material from your piece, because there's no teeth there. So yeah, barrette files, part of me would go, if I had to choose two, I would go the half round and a barrette. We've then got a different type of pillar, but it's got a rounded edge. So you've got, rounded edges. So again, another shape that you can utilise. And the next one is the same deal. It's got the same profile, but just like the tapered flat, this one's got a tapered point to it. So this is known as a crochet or a tapered round edge pillar. The next one is a diamond shape, but most likely it's going to be known as a slitting file. And then the final one is one that I've only ever seen as an escapement file. It's called a round off. So it's a half round, but the teeth are, again, only on the bottom, and the rounded edge is a safe edge, no teeth. So lots and lots of profiles. But what's the point of all these profiles? Why on earth would you need that many different shapes? Well, mainly because you can make all sorts of shaped jewelry. So what I've got here is a whole bunch of different shaped metal, and the different shapes will determine the kind of the way that I am going to file. So for something like this, oh look, it's got a really nice square corner and I want to keep that corner nice and 90 degrees, I might choose to use a square file. Potentially I could use a triangular file as well if I just want to focus on one edge and not cut into the corner. Oh look, I've got some what they call concave surfaces. So these dip into a surface. So concave, that's where I will definitely use some kind of curved file. Depending on the size and the shape, I might be able to get a hand file in. It might be too small. I've got to go down to a needle file to get the right profile for the job. Something like this. Actually, let's move that out of the way so you can. Something like this one. This one has a convex, which curves over, and then the concave dipping in. So for that, I can use a flat file over the convex surface and a rounded one on the concave. So I might choose to use my half round because then I don't have to pick up two different files. This little one here where you've got a shape in the middle, that kind of tiny little point down there, that rounded point, I would definitely probably going in with a round file because that's the only one that's going to fit into that rounded corner. And the round file might work for the whole thing because it's such a small little area. I might not get in, certainly not a hand file. The longer concave line on this side, maybe a half round might work for that. So yeah, you're choosing your profiles based on the material that you've got, or the pattern or the design that you're making. Now, the next thing you've got to think about, pardon me, is this concept of the grit or the cut. So if you've got a...
Oh, Katherine, we just lost the internet, but just there. Do you just want to just say that last little bit again?
Oh, okay. The next thing that the decision you need to make is about the cut or the grit of the file that you're going to use. And this is kind of determined by what's been left behind by the previous process. So if I've got, this is the edge of my material. Let's bring that down a bit. The saw marks on the edge of the metal will kind of have these kind of little cut lines from where the blade's been slicing through. Depending on the metal, if it's something like titanium, they will often be very close together because your file just can't cut through. On aluminium, they might be far away, but you've got these marks. So depending on the metal, you might decide to go for a mid cut on your file. So something like a 2, that's like a finer, a medium cut. Then you might go straight to a cut on a needle file. So cuts work like this. The lower the number equals the coarser the grit. the higher the number, the finer the cut or the grit. So your hand files will probably go from about a 0 to a 4. Your needle files might go from about a 0 to perhaps around about a 6. Your escapement files might go from, they're more like, it's probably about 3, 4, up to like a 10. Very, very fine. So you kind of choose your grit or your cut of the file depending on what you're trying to get rid of. If your marks are really obvious from your saw blade, or your accuracy was way off that day and you've got to get rid of a bulk of material to get it back to the line that you want, then you're going to go for a coarser grade. However, if those cut lines are nice and close together and you've cut really accurately, you might just touch up with a little bit of hand file, and that's all you need before you do your sanding and polishing. So it's a bit of kind of judgment call as to how you then choose your file and decide on which grit or which cut you're going to utilize. So you're always moving from the coarser cut to the finer cut, and the cut 4 will get rid of the cut 0 marks. The cut 6 will get rid of the cut 4 marks. The cut 10 will get rid of the cut 6. So you're moving through. It's just like sandpaper, if you know about sandpaper.
Excuse me, Catherine, I've just got a comment from Silver. He wants to know how can I tell what number my files are?
Oh, your good quality ones, it should be on the file. So for me, these hand files, these ones are Frederick Dick. These are a Swiss brand. So they'll have the brand, and on the other side, it will say number 2. What's that say? Swiss made. Yeah, number 2. But if I open up my other packet, which is this is a number 3. Oh, can you see? Whoops. So that's number 3. Now, if I compare the two of those, yeah, let's flip those over so you see the numbers. The grade 2 is quite a bit coarser than the grade 3. Yeah, so good quality files, it should be on there. My wax files, it's actually on the on the package. They're all cut 0. Cut 00. My needle files, let's have a look. I've got to look over my note and over my glasses. Yep, there we go. It's right on the handle in the tang. Whoops. So that's a number 2.
Beauty. Well, thanks for addressing that, Catherine.
On good quality files, it should be on the file itself. However, if I have a look at my just these little Trojan-y ones, yeah, there's nothing on there. Yeah, so yeah, kind of your hardware store, which is where I got these ones, they are not quite as interested in that. They'll have a hand file, they'll just make it all in one grit and one cut. Their needle files will be a finer cut, and that's it. You've just got the choice of one, and they may not tell you what that is. But yeah, your good quality jewellery ones, they will tell you. And if you go to like the AJS website, they will usually tell you what the files are available in. Now, there is one thing to be aware of with these cuts. There are two different types. There is a German cut and there is a Swiss cut. Yeah, and they're different, and they're different for a reason. So these Frederick Dick ones, they are they're a German cut. The German cut, it goes down the way that it's calculated is it's the number of teeth in a certain area or a certain length parallel to the long edge of the file. So yeah, they're counting teeth on that long edge. Swiss cut ones, which I'm pretty sure my needle files are. Actually, no, because they're all Dick. I think the Velourbe, Grocott Velourbe. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. From memory, I'm pretty sure these are Swiss cut. The teeth are not counted parallel to the edge. They're counted perpendicular to the long edge. So therefore, you might have, a grade 2 grit in one file and a grade 2 grit in another, but one is coarser than the other. It's possibly because one is counted this German method and the other is counted in this Swiss method. So again, if you want to be like consistent and know that, all your files kind of work on the same like level, go the same grit, go the same type of cut. So do all German or all Swiss, or just remember. And you can tell by looking at them. You can tell, and the feel of them. A coarser file looks coarser. The teeth are bulkier. It feels rougher. A finer file, when you feel this escapement file, it's almost like nothing's there. It's just this ever so slight, kind of feel to it. I wonder if that's got me. That's a 6. Yep. So this is a Velourbe. This is a grit 6. So yeah, I've got 2, 3, 2, 00, 6. Once you know your files, you will know. You get to the point where you just have to look at them to know which one you need to use, because you need the coarser or the finer. So yeah, once you get used to it, you'll know by sight and by feel. Experience is a great teacher. Exactly.
And Velourbe would be how you'd say that, Katherine. Velourbe.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The people actually know how to pronounce things. Velourbe. And the other thing to look at is that most of your hand files, or again, good quality hand files and needle files, will be what's called a double cut. So hopefully you can see this in the camera. Whoops, back that way. And
I'll just get it for you, Katherine. Yep.
Okay, so you can see, there we go. This line kind of coming down at one angle, and then there's this other line going that way.
Yep.
That's an indication of a double cut file. So that means that the teeth are at ever so slightly different angles, but it means that it will cut a little bit more aggressively and therefore more efficiently and quickly than a single cut file. But yeah, I think all of my files are double cut. Oh, actually, no, some of my needle files are single cut. So, yeah, again, just knowing that, yeah, a double cut file, a little bit more aggressive and less able to, it's more likely to catch and mar your work if you're pulling it backwards. So let's, should we get into some actual technique so that you actually learn how to file, not just all this background information about what files actually are.
But essential information nevertheless. So thank you very much for that, Katherine.
Yeah. I know that's a lot of information for you guys, but hopefully that is helpful so that you know kind of what you're dealing with. So with your files, you can, if you want to, you can get these little interchangeable handles. So I've got one of my very first needle file was this little half round, and to this date it's probably still the one I use the most, and I've put a permanent handle on that because I just use it so often. But you can get these other little interchangeable ones so that if you know that you're going to be filing for ages, you can insert a needle file, and you get bigger ones for the hand files. This one just has a little twist on it, and so you can kind of hold it. However, I do find that most of the time I don't need a handle. I've gotten so used to being able to use, yeah, a naked file that I can just, yeah, just utilize this. So yes, you can get handles. Yeah, if you need it. So it's, yeah, a bit of personal preference there and what you're used to. Your posture, you know, make sure you are kind of sitting up straight, that your seat is set at the right height. You want your bench peg kind of about, yeah, 10, 15 centimetres below your chin, keeping your elbows and, you know, shoulders relaxed. And when you're holding a file, you're not gripping it to death. It's kind of this firm but gentle. And holding the file, you do want to have your index finger kind of on the back face of the file. So you've got some control. Some people, especially with their hand files, they'll put the tang kind of in the heel of their hand. Some people even like put little rubber dots on the bottom of those, but again, I haven't found the need to yet, maybe when I'm older. But you'll have your middle finger on one side, thumb on the other, finger over the top. So again, you've got that control. You can move your file from side to side as well as backwards and forwards, and you can easily flip it over. So if you're using a half round file, you can go from the flat face to the curved face nice and quickly and easily. Now, when you're starting, I do see this a lot with students, is this. We're going to file in there. No, it doesn't work. Or it doesn't work efficiently or effectively because both components can move all over the place. You don't have enough control. So with both things, you want to have, you know, gentle firm pressure here, but this needs to be clamped in place. And depending on, this can be a little bit of a find the right place for you. In that, how you hold this can depend on what it is. So for some, using kind of this part or a very tapered part of your bench peg might be great for, you know, putting a ring shape on the end so that you can clamp that right in place. So getting the ring or an internal shape on so it's nice and secure. Sometimes it might be a case of you put the piece on the side of the of your bench peg and you clamp it in with your fingers. So you're holding it with, oh gosh, my bench peg is moving all over the place. you're clamping it in place with your fingers. It could be that you divot out something, you cut something into your bench peg so that you've got a place so it's wedged in and you can hold it. So just making sure that there's somehow a very, very nice, secure way of holding that piece so that it can be filed. Alrighty. So if I get this nice and secure, files are designed to file on the push stroke, not the pull stroke. So what you want to be doing is getting your file to a position where it can do the most amount of work in the most efficient stroke. So for straight edges, what I prefer to do is actually get my file at an angle and then drop it onto the line so that I can then file in one stroke all along that piece. I file and then I lift and I return it to place. File, lift, file, lift. And so what I'm trying to do is get all the saw marks, or I think this might have even been guillotines, like a guillotine mark out of the piece. Some people might be tempted to go backwards, forward, backwards, forward, backwards, forward, backwards, forwards, this kind of thing. The danger of doing that, especially on a long kind of straight edge like this, is that you will end up dropping your file, this way and that way. You're not keeping it straight. You're going backwards, forwards, backwards, forwards, backwards, forwards, and you'll end up with a curve or like little cuts off the ends of your piece. So, for precision work, place your file, make sure it's flat and square, long stroke. Flat and square, long stroke. Flat and square, long stroke. You can also do it at an ever so slight angle. So some people will actually go, onto the side of their piece. They'll have an angle and they'll file at that kind of diagonal angle. So for a long straight stroke, either one of those is going to work. Now, that's actually pretty good. I probably should have stopped to show you when it was not good. You might be able to see that I've gotten rid of all of the little cut lines in the top from the saw blade. Now it looks nice, clean. It's the one colour. What you're looking for is what a teacher of mine used to call light lines. And he used to describe it in terms of, when a car is in immaculate condition, because the light reflects off all the curves, all the straight lines the right way. You're not seeing imperfections because the light bounces off it correctly. However, if you've dented your car, the light reflects off it wrong. You can see if you move, even if it's the gentlest dent ever, if you move, the light will reflect off it and you can see the divot. It's the same with filing. If you can see light reflecting off it nice and evenly across that filed surface, great, you've done a good job. But if you turn that, if you maneuver it and you start seeing light kind of bouncing off it weird, you know that you've got a little bit of work to do. Now, I can see just a tiny, tiny little bit. Another little hint. If you cannot see what's going on, if you can't see that nice, clean line, texter or a Sharpie, and you can put a little coloured edge on it. Then clamp it in place, get it nice and square, do your one stroke. Now you'll quickly be able to see where you are filing. Now you can see on that with that just one stroke, I have taken off more on this side than I have on this side. So it means that my file ever so slightly angled towards the right rather than nice and square. So that helps me out. And I can, the little bit that was not filed before, it's completely black. It's still completely black up the end. So I can give it another few strokes. And get rid of the entire thing. So I've got a nice clean line there, except for one tiny little black bit up here, which I'm going to take a guess that that's where the guillotine kind of took a nice little bite out of it. There's an angle, a very, very slight angle, where the black text is still showing, but the rest of it, all nice, clean, flat, yeah, kind of nice, perfect, straight line. So we've got a straight line. What about these curved lines? What do we do here? So for these, we might get out our half rounds. Whoops. For now, what we're trying to do is now, which is the easiest way to do this. We're trying to find the profile that most closely fits the curves that we've got. So that one's not too bad. So I went to this one. This is my shallow one. Yeah, you can see that one doesn't quite have enough curve to get into that one. You could use it, but yeah, the other one's probably a little bit better. So for something like this, which has a practice pin in it that I've, yeah, testing out a concept there. Again, clamping it in place. I'm going to see if I can like wedge it into the part of my bench pin that where you can normally saw blade through, saw pierce through. So wedge it in, clamp firmly with my left hand. With this, you still need to get your file square to the piece, but you're going at an angle and you're having a nice twisting motion with your file. Now, can you hear that sound of that kind of, it's a rough sound. When I was filing down here, almost no sound at all. Up here, it's kind of gritty sound. You can hear when you're filing well. That sound is because it's up in the air so much that there's more vibration in this piece moving. Now, I've got, vaguely strong enough fingers that I can hold in place and, we'll be able to work through it. But if that was not effective, I might, wedge it in lower down and the sound completely changes. So you can actually hear when you are filing correctly or efficiently. So yeah, it's a much kind of lower, smoother sound. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it wouldn't be that vibration.
Yeah, you don't have the vibration. Yeah. So yeah, I've wedged that in place so that I've got, both sides captured, and I'm making sure the file is square to the piece, and I'm doing this kind of twisting motion as I'm curving that through. Now, this one is possibly a little bit easier to see. Well, it is for me. I don't know about you guys. But with that coarser file, you can see I've gotten rid of the cut marks, but I've now put in file marks. So I need to get rid of those file marks. So that's when I would go down to a needle file of a appropriate profile. So we want, where's my nice half round? That's a half round. Again, wedge in place. And the finer file, it will have a different sound. But I'm doing the same movement. I've still got it square to the piece, at a slight diagonal to the edge, and I'm kind of sweeping and twisting as I go on that concave surface. And just with those few little strokes, we've gotten rid of that of the kind of file lines from the coarser file. But you can see the dramatic difference between that side, which hasn't been filed. It's kind of dull and scratchy. And this side, nice high shine, kind of even across it. Now, what other shapes can we do? Now, I'll swap over to aluminium files because this is aluminium. We've got we might use oh, actually, let's see. Here's my barrette file.
Oh, number two.
Yep, number two. This is the such an important file. So with these convex curves, again, we actually want to use a flat surface for those, and we're going over the top. So again, we might clamp in place. And we're using the flat surface on that. But if I then took my file and tried to get a flat file into the concave surface, it has the danger that it's just the edges, especially if it's not a barrette file, it's going to dig in. And whatever profile you've got will dig into that curve. So for that, we definitely need a half round or a oval or so for this, we might go, we'll do our concave with our rounded file. And then the convex with our flat. So I could just swap that straight over. And I'm filing over the top to get that curved shape. Now, here we've got some other little shapes. This one here, whoops, with this angle, we want to keep that angle nice. This is where a barrette file might come in handy, because with no teeth on that top edge, I can't cut into this face over here. I can focus on starting at that, the kind of point of it, and I file outwards in one direction, and I can turn it around, start at that point and move out. Now, this piece is particularly, it's quite thick, and so there's like different, actually I might colour that in and then hopefully you can see a bit better. So yeah, there's different points. You can see the light lines where bits of it are shiny and bits of it are dull. If I colour that over with the Sharpie, get my barrette, I'll do one stroke and see what disappears. One stroke, only that top edge disappeared. A little bit more on the top edge and a little bit down the bottom. So I know that these dark areas where the where the texture still is, I know that they are the low points of the of that line. there, a few more strokes. I've gotten rid of most of it, but there's still that one larger area and one tiny little area. Keep going. And there we go. We've gotten rid of all of it, and it should come up kind of a nice flat, like, yeah, the light reflecting off it is kind of even now rather than all over the place. Plus, I've gotten rid of all my black texture. So, yeah, that's the kind of, oh, here's a, yeah, this kind of inside shape here. For something like that, going in with your triangular file might be better. So with this, I don't know if you can see, my triangular file doesn't quite hit that other side. So as long as my, as long as the base face remains on the lower edge, I'm not going to be eating into the side because my file isn't the right shape. But if I had a pillar file, you know, nice, yeah, rectangular one, if I started to cut in there, what I'm actually doing is the width of this file here is actually eating into this area here. So it will start to dig away. Actually, I'll draw a picture of that. So I've got a triangular piece here. If I use my kind of triangular file, it will fit into that shape. But if I use a square or a pillar file, this point here will start digging in, and over time, as I keep filing, this edge will start to look like this. That's what I'll do.
Sacre bleu.
Yes, it's terrible. So that's what you want to kind of avoid. Right profile for the piece. Now, hopefully, that's beginning to make a little bit of sense. One of the other things you can file is not just the edges of sheet metal. You can file wire. Now, this is a broach wire, so it's quite hard. But for this, you really do want to hold it very well and very carefully. If you have it, you know, kind of sticking up and you're up here, the danger is that you can like bend it and the piece of wire will just fold over, depending on whether it's been annealed or not. So for something like that, you actually want the end of the wire to be only about 1 millimeter above your bench peg, or even at the very edge of your bench. Yeah, depending on what you're most comfortable with. But you then hold the wire perpendicular to the face of your peg. Then the bench peg will kind of stop it from, like, stop your file from dipping and moving. It's like, oh, there's this nice big flat spot. So it will keep your file at the right angle. But you keep it down nice and low. So again, you don't have vibrations or anything like that. And then you end up with a nice flat kind of point. Little hint with with round wire is that when you filed it correctly and nice and square, it will be a circle. Yes, that is a circle. But if you have filed it at an angle, it will become an oval because you're cutting into the wire rather than across the wire. So again, you'll know when you filed this correctly and square when it is actually round rather than an oval. All right. And sometimes you might have tiny wincy little pieces that, you know, just become too hard to hold in your hands. That's when a pair of pliers might come in handy. So depending on the work, you might use like nylon covered pliers so it doesn't mark, or if you haven't done any filing or sanding or finishing on that face, normal pair of pliers. I find that parallel pliers work best because it kind of grips the whole length of the piece rather than just the point. But you can have those in place, wedge your pliers into your bench peg, and then use your, use the correct file to shape around it. So here we've got a convex surface. So I'm going around the piece. And I'm getting a nice smooth line all the way around. Excuse me while I look over my glasses because I'm blind. So, yeah, there's a few little helpful hints for actual, kind of filing and, being able to get some good technique. Your files, once you've been filing for a while, they can get clogged. So cleaning them is important, especially aluminium. Like you might be able to see my aluminium files, they've got nice grey aluminium in them. First thing you can do is just wipe them on your apron. That'll get kind of rid of all the surface material out of it. And then one of these, this is a file brush. So as you can see, it's got little teeth that are kind of at like bent angles. Hold your brush and you brush in the direction of the teeth. So at that kind of diagonal angle across the file. Some people will even get like a piece of old scrap copper and do the same thing, just kind of run the copper across it, and it will start to get the grooves into it, and then that helps dig out the pieces. But yeah, a file brush is handy, piece of copper if you don't have one. Okay, any questions? Anybody got any thoughts before we head into some troubleshooting?
No, but I'd like to say good day to Silver and to Shant, who have been watching your presentation, Catherine. So, lots of good information. It's really about knowing your tools, what you've got to choose from, and then what sort of tasks you can do with those particular tools. Eh?
Yeah, that's right. Having the right tools at your fingertips, it makes work very efficient. And also being able to recognise what you need to do. I was making up some brooches just recently out of titanium, and because titanium is so hard, the cut lines were just so nice and close together that it didn't take much. I didn't have to use a big hand file to get those out. Just a needle file over the top of that was actually sufficient. That was quick enough, efficient enough to do the job. And also being titanium and being hard, my sawing could be far more accurate, whereas with aluminium being so soft, you can take a stroke and you can be off the line very quickly. So yeah, sometimes when I'm working with titanium, I don't need to do as much cleaning up because the material itself helps you to stay accurate. Aluminium, it's like butter. Off you go. All right, some troubleshooting. If you've got curved spots, you know, your ends are dripping off, or that can be because you are, you know, going backwards and forwards and you're not keeping your your file level. If something was like very pronounced and you need to get rid of a lot of material, then focusing on that spot, you know, you wanted, you had a piece, it was meant to go like that, but as you've sawn it out, it's gone, you know, up like that. You can focus on that little area there and get that down, 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 and then curved, and then do your long strokes over that curved edge. The other thing is if you've got those kind of curved lines, it can be that the angle of your file is incorrect. So instead of being nice and square to the face of the metal, you've got it at an angle. So you're kind of, curving the edge. If you've got those different facets, so, you know, there's your edges of your material and you seem to have a line here and a line here and a line here and a line there, and that's because your file has been at, you know, one angle here, a completely different angle here, and third angle here, another angle here. So you're actually filing facets into the piece instead of one, kind of one stroke. So you're wanting the file to kind of cover as much area as possible, so that it can take away material in one stroke over a greater area. And if you're finding that you are gouging, like this little guy over here, that can be because you're either focused on one area like this, and what you've actually ended up doing is going too far and you've kind of cut into it. So you're just doing this kind of in the one spot, or you're using the wrong shaped profile file for the job. Then your hint could be use a barrette file or a file that has a safe edge somewhere on it, to be able to get into that area so you're not gouging things out. Alrighty. Whew. I think that's about it for filing. That's a lot of information.
You've done so well, Katherine. Thank you so much. And Silva's made the comment, very helpful information. So thank you for that feedback, Silva. And I'm glad that he's got something out of it.
Yeah, hopefully this gives you a insight into the actual tools itself, the files, but also the technique to be able to use your files well, use them efficiently. Yeah.
Great job, Katherine. So, here we go, Silva. Thank you heaps, Katherine. Have to go. We'll watch again later. So he's going to watch it again. There you go.
Totally understandable. You can see the bits that you've figured out and, focus on what you need to know.
Excellent. So, Katherine, thank you again. And we'll look forward to seeing you and our online viewers in the real near future.
That sounds great. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And enjoy making your jewellery. Thank you.